So it's pretty clear that people are using mobile phones for videography more and more these days. So with the Google Pixel 6, I just wanted to test it to see if I could use it for future projects, what type of projects I would use it for, and also how it compares to when I use a normal camera. So with the Google Pixel 6, I must say that the stabilization is very, very good. I'm very impressed with it. The other thing is mobile phones are very light. So in terms of performing gimbal-like moves, it was actually easier than I thought it would be. So when I used the Google Pixel 6, I did not use a gimbal at all to perform gimbal-based moves. Now when the subject is moving, it is a bit more difficult to perform those orbit-like moves because you don't have the entire stabilization there that you would have with a gimbal. In terms of performing the gimbal moves of like panning up, down, forwards, backwards, sideways, these type of moves, I think they're all pretty simple and pretty easy when you're using a mobile phone. If you turn off the stabilization with the Google Pixel 6, now it does change the zoom level, and I found that it is quite jittery after that. So it's probably best to leave the stabilization on. Another thing that really stood out for me is that there's no 24 frames per second. As a filmmaker, that's a difficult one to swallow. But I think most people don't really notice when they're watching 30 frames per second versus 24 frames per second. So with the Google Pixel 6 and 30 frames per second and 60 frames per second, I've tested it mostly in 1080p. Only because I just wanted to really test the limitations of this type of footage and see how easy it is to edit in Premiere Pro and things like that. When filming with the Google Pixel 6, it's very important to lock the focus and exposure. Now, if you film with real cameras, then you probably adjust settings manually anyway. But if you don't, if you shoot in different light sources, then you're gonna get unusable footage for sure. With the zoom options, I'm pretty happy with the choices there. I think it's very quick and simple to choose your zoom settings. So the 0.7 is right there, which is the wide angle type lens. Starts off in 1x, that's the standard, and that's probably, those two I'll probably use most of the time, and then it goes to 2x. You can actually zoom up to 7x, but with the 7x I wouldn't use it unless I'm shooting very static on a tripod, or 4K. I would shoot in 4K for sure. Otherwise the footage is probably not going to be very usable at all. So when I film a sequence, I don't just shoot one angle. I try to shoot at least 2 or 3 angles. And I find that using mobile phones to shoot those unique angles, it's a lot harder. I found that when I was trying to shoot lower, doing tracking type, gimbal type movements, then I had a few shots where it wasn't straight. So I had to do it a bit of an adjustment in post. Yeah, so I think mobile phones are great for filming in really tight spots. Maybe there's a lot of people and you don't want to be carrying a bunch of gear around in those types of areas. So the next step of filming with the Google Pixel 6 for me is testing that 4K. I just want to see what the limits are in terms of getting macro-like shots that I could maybe use for product shoots and things like that. So I'll probably be testing that, and hopefully you see it in the next video. But thanks for watching, guys. Like and subscribe to the channel. I'll see you in the next one.